Good afternoon. Today I will be presenting my project on the concentrations unit, and the solution that I will be critiquing today is naloxone hydrochloride. So it will be critiqued in the standards of counteracting opioid harm. So here it is. First I'll give you a little bit of the context of the problem. So the problem is a very big one. It's the opioid crisis. The opioid crisis has been on the rise these past few years, which this means that people are more and more using opioids. Opioids are drugs that alter our brain's chemicals in a certain way that makes us feel pain relief, euphoria, and other symptoms that can lead to death. So here's the first symptom. So what this is basically saying, it's pretty complicated, but what this is basically saying is that opioids inhibit these neurons, these GABAergic inhibitory neurons, and when they inhibit them, these signal this is turned off, which means that the sending pathway neuron is activated, which then activates this that blocks the neuron communication. What does this mean? So when it blocks neuron communication, our brain cannot communicate with the other parts of our body. For example, if we hurt our arm or if our leg is hurting, our brain, because the communication had just been cut off, our brain cannot receive any signals. That's why we don't feel pain when we take opioids. And that's why opioids are used in cancer treatment and in a lot of treatments that can kill the pain. And this is the other symptom that is very dangerous, and it's the one that causes an opioid overdose. So basically, in this complex called the pre-Blattzinger complex, there are these neurons right here, and these neurons make us breathe. They signal our diaphragm and all of the muscles in our body to breathe. So if for some reason we stop breathing on purpose or for whatever reason, these neurons here, okay, these receptors, they detect the oxygen level and the carbon dioxide level. So when they detect that there's abnormalities, they force this neuron to activate, they force this neuron to breathe, to signal the other muscles to breathe again. So what this means is that if for whatever reason we stop breathing, we have a backup plan that forces us to breathe again. That's why we cannot die just by simply holding our breath on purpose. If we try and hold our breath, no matter for how long, these neurons will come into action and force us to breathe. Now, what opioids do is that they inhibit these neurons, they can inhibit these receptors, and when they inhibit these receptors, it means that they do not longer force us to breathe, which means that if we stop breathing, we can actually die. There's no backup plan anymore, which obviously leads to death, and that's why that is an opioid overdose. So another thing about the context of the problem before going on to the process of solving the problem is that in Ecuador, there's been a rise in opioids in the compound called H. So H is a compound of heroin and a lot of other substances, which tells you how dangerous it is. So the problem here is that not a lot of people know how to save a life, because the opiate overdose can actually be reverted with naloxone hydrochloride. Not a lot of people know this. So when they see someone in an opiate overdose, they don't know what to do, and sadly, the people die. So this is the process that I did of all my investigation to solve the problem. So first of all, I was brainstorming problems and possible solutions. So what I did here is that I didn't know what problem to choose, but I saw a YouTube recommended video precisely that was talking about opioids. So that reminded me, because I previously knew of a substance called naloxone hydrochloride. I knew about it before, so I said this can actually work. And then I performed an investigation with all of these sources, which are very trustworthy. The UN, the Secretaría Técnica de Prevención Integral de Drogas, they're really trustworthy sources. So I performed an investigation, and it was a very thorough investigation about the context of the problem, the exact mechanism of opioids, and uh, the solution itself, and other interesting facts that might help the reader comprehend this problem. Then we moved on to stage three of the project, test the validity of our solution. So what this means is that if our solution actually solves something, if it actually solves the problem, what are the limitations? What are our disadvantages? What are our advantages? So this is why we did stage three of the project, to know what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses of the project. And what we did, this is the other part of stage three, is to execute a solution, to test if our solution actually works. So obviously my problem was that there wasn't a lot of knowledge about naloxone hydrochloride, so my solution obviously is raising awareness. And I did this by uploading a public YouTube video and receiving the feedback in the comment section if it actually helped, and if the people actually didn't know about naloxone hydrochloride and what they have learned. And this tested if my solution actually does something. And we collected the results. So here we can see in the video, you can see some of the comments, and some of the comments are feedback, which is very positive feedback. It tells me that I have successfully raised awareness about the topic. There's a lot of comments here that did not know about naloxone hydrochloride. So you can pretty much say that my work here is done. And this was pretty much all my project until now, raising awareness about this problem that is destroying the lives of many people. Um, Now about concentrations, there is a lot of things that concentrations apply a lot in this problem, especially in the problem, because it is very important to note that, for example, alcohol, it has a lot of concentrations that are marked. We know the concentrations of alcohol. For example, I know that a beer has low concentrations, while a bottle of vodka has really high concentrations that can even kill a person. So, for example, if I have a beer, I will not die, but if I have a whole bottle of vodka, I can actually die. But I know that. I know that because I know about concentrations. I know about the concentrations listed. There's a lot of labels there. And however, that is not always the case with opioids, because first of all, people do not know, and second of all, illicit opioids such as heroin or H, they they obviously do not have labels on them. They do not have labels of concentration. So a user does not know if they are consuming really potent heroin or if they're consuming really weak heroin. So for example, if a user gets weak heroin, he will think, oh, I'll have to have a higher dose so I can get high. But what if, for example, he doesn't know, but the heroin is really potent, and he has the same dose as he did before, but now, since the heroin is really potent, it can actually kill him. So concentrations play a really important role in the problem, and that's why we should know about this.